Now that you've learned some of the skills in Photoshop, let's put this all together and make something like an advertisement or a collage. So let's go ahead and start from scratch. Instead of opening a photo and working with that, let's say File to New blank file. In this case, I'm going to give it a name, and I can say how many inches I want and my resolution. Now this is really important. If I don't set this as a high enough resolution, it's going to look very pixelated if I choose to print it. If I'm working online, 100 resolution is plenty good enough. But if I want to print something, I need to call my printer and find out what resolution is required. Most printers, 300 will work just fine. They're between 200 and 300 generally. But again, if you're going to a professional press, please ask them what resolution your items need to be put in. What's the width? What's the height? I'll go ahead and do it this way. It's horizontal, and click OK. And here is my file. You'll notice up here that it's showing at 41.7%. I can zoom in and zoom out using this zoomer, or I use quick commands. I can use Control and the minus and Control and the plus, or hold the Control and the space bar and hit the mouse. Okay, so first thing I want to do is put a color background on my my file, or I could use a gradient. If I want to do a gradient, I can just draw it like this, and whatever two colors I have here, it will create a gradient. If I want a solid background, I can use my I can just select all and hit the backspace, or I could use the color bucket, whichever I prefer. I'm going to go ahead and go for that gradient. I'm going to leave these colors. If I wanted to select different colors, I can just double click here. Color palette comes up. I choose the color family and then choose the specific color here. It will show here, and I'm set to go. If I wanted that gradient, I could draw it here. Okay, let's say the first thing I want is to get a picture on here. I'm going to use the place command. File to place, and I'm going to go ahead and get a picture that I would like to place on here. You'll notice it'll ask you to accept this. I can resize it. I can move it. Hold that shift key if you don't want to distort your picture. And if you like it, click the little check mark and you click OK. Always go back to your pointer tool if you want to move things. You'll notice the rotate, unlike Microsoft, which has it at the top, is over on the sides, and I can move it over here. If I want some nice soft edges on here, I can use the marquee tool, draw inside the border a little bit. Notice I have two layers now. I have to be on this correct layer. Now I'm going to select the inverse, and it's going to do everything around it, and then I'm going to feather the edges. I'm going to say 20 is good. Click OK, and then I'm going to hit that backspace key and hit the escape to make the marching ants go away. And now I have that soft edge on my photo. Don't forget your undo history. That's located under Window to undo history if your window's not open. You can always click clear back to the beginning if you like, anytime that you've done something that you don't like. Okay, so I've got my picture in here, and let's say I need some text. I'm going to get the text tool and just click where I want my text. I can always move this later. You'll notice you'll see the cursor. If the cursor is too big, you might not see it. You can adjust your size here. You can pick your font, and you can see the sample of what it's going to look like. You can pick the color. Purple on purple might not work so well. So let's just get really wild. I'll pick yellow so that you can see it. I have some other choices here, my leading, some of those other things, and I'm just going to say that's good for now, my text. And you can always click back in here. You have to make sure you click in the box. I'm going to get my pointer or my move tool and move this over. You'll notice that you can drag this to make it bigger once you have it, but that does pixelate it, so you'll want to use the point size measurement rather than that stretch one. If you like it, you click OK. One of the things that I like to use quite a bit, I'm going to close that undo history, is underneath the Effects tool, and it's the second one over, not this one. And if your effects aren't showing, again, go to your window and pull up the effects. I like to add drop shadows on. I can just double click and see the drop shadow that I like the best. And I also oftentimes like to do bevels. And again, I can just double click and see which bevel I like the best on my text. See how this can really pop by adding some bevels and adding drop shadows. There are also embossings in here, glass buttons, inner shadows, inner glows, outer glows, lots of different things that you can do and make this the way you like it. Of course, then I can add more text and more pictures. I can select the picture and put drop shadows on it. I can even bevel this. Of course, that will take away some of my little shadow. But if I want to put a bevel on there, I can see if I like any of those. Notice that I have all these different layers. At any time I want to flatten the layers and make it all one thing, I can just right click on here and flatten the layer. And or simplify, sometimes it says simplify the layer, and this layer will be all flattened and simplified. The other thing I forgot to mention with text is underneath the layer, so let me go back in history here, go up to the window, to my history, I'll look at my undo history, and I'm going to go here. Whereabouts was it? Okay, so let's say that I would like to do something fancy. Underneath type, I can warp the text and choose a style. And I can adjust all of this for different warps. There are different styles here that I might like to mess with a little bit. Okay, again, you can right click on the background and flatten the layer, and now everything's all in one. I'm not able to edit it anymore unless I go back in my undo history. So that's how you could make a collage and add something cool for a logo for yourself, those types of things. I hope that helped you work with Photoshop.